I think we are live, but not in all the channels. So let me wait here a little bit because I think it's still connecting on LinkedIn. Okay, connecting. So let's wait. Okay, now I believe we are live in all channels. Okay, usually I'm speaking Portuguese on this channel, and most of people that have been watching the past videos, the past lives, they know I was talking in Portuguese. But today it's gonna be a little bit different, our fig jamming session, because we're gonna do this in English. And on this session, as you know, I try to bring designers, founders, creative minds together so we can sketch ideas live and talk about how design is shaping the world. And actually, today was a very interesting day, right? Because Figma launched a bunch of new features that brings us back as designers to design system. But I think it's gonna be very interesting because this is a foundation for AI, right? So we're gonna talk about that, and I think uh, probably Brazilians they're gonna uh, be very interesting to understand a little bit about this app that calls Play. And I'm super happy because I invited this friend. We met in Miami a long time ago, and we became good friends, right? For a long time now. It's crazy to think about that. We are like a, like a no kids on that time. Now everybody, we have our kids, and life changed a lot, but I think for better, for sure. So we're gonna dive into what soccer means or football, right? Usually we just say football around the world to build something on this field that is very interesting. I love like soccer, but I'm not a big fan that watch all the games, but I really like to follow a couple of games. And yeah, so let's bring Jonathan so he can introduce himself to the audience. Hey, Jonathan, welcome.
What's going on, everyone? What's up, Juno? Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, man. It's a long time, right? Like, because since I moved to Atlanta, right? Like, it has been very difficult to meet in person. I think the last time was in San Francisco, right?
That's right. Yeah, at the Figma conference.
Yeah, yeah. Like the thing that I'm looking for is the ramen again.
Yeah, I still can't find good ramen in South Florida compared to that place. That place by far has been the best ramen I've ever had.
And the crazy thing is because right now I'm in Brazil, and in Brazil there's like a huge Japanese community in São Paulo, the city I'm here right now. But even here, you cannot find a really good ramen like that. The only place that I found a good ramen is in Curitiba. That is a city that is in south of Brazil, and the guys it's a it's a it's a family business, right? There's the dad and the guy, the
Yeah.
son. They start like doing ramens because of COVID, whatever, and they travel to Japan to learn, and they are Japanese family. So it's very interesting because they brought the machine to make like the pasta, all the stuff. This is the best ramen that I found in Brazil. So it's like a little bit far to go, but I think my dream is to go back to San Francisco next year, right? To config, we can go and have like this tradition, right? Like we go
Yeah.
there, but the thing is, we cannot invite a lot of people. You know that.
No, you can't. There's a long line and a very small space to sit.
Yeah. So it's not because we don't want to like socialize with people, but it's only because it's really hard to
Yep.
find like a place like a to sit and eat over there. Okay, so I'll be bringing my screen here. So we have the fig jam right here. Okay, so I think everybody can see the fig jam. Cool. And this fig jam is gonna be open public for people. So whatever link, photo, whatever like we want to share later on, people can just uh, come here, connect, and add comments. It's the only thing that it's allowed actually later on, because I don't want to like make like a open to edit, of course. But Jonathan, tell me more about yourself. I know that you have been designing for a long time, like me, and
Yeah.
also you have been on the Adobe platform as well, right, for a long time, and you switch it to like a, let's say, digital design. It's hard to define right now, right? But I think the market shifted a lot, and also like I think your career, right? Like because I think you were like doing different stuff, right? Like tell the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I started designing about 15 years ago. Probably a little more than that, to be honest, because I was working out of a print shop. So for me, it started with print. And it's funny, I remember speaking to an old mentor of mine, and one of the reasons why she had hired me when I first got my first role in like a digital design environment is that they said, she said, people who do print design are really good at the small details because it's you should not make mistakes in print design, right? Like it's something you have to really look out for because once you print it and something's messed up, you have to reprint it again, and that's overhead that costs money. So, being very detail oriented and just making sure I understood certain things like grids and how to lay things out on paper and sheets inside of a digital environment to then go to print. So it all started there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started jumping into like digital and web at a small agency early on, and then that brought me into a big enterprise company called CBRE, which is commercial real estate, and that opened me up to more like UX and marketing strategy. Um, where I spent I think about 4 or 5 years at that company, and that's when I started Iron Hack to get more into like product design and UX. And from there, I did earn a partnership with Adobe. So they had, when XD was a big deal, they had um, an ambassador program, and I was a part of that ambassador program for a very, very little while, mostly through 2020 into 2021. Because at some point, Figma really started to take over the market, and XD and Adobe started to realize that they just couldn't keep up. So eventually the ambassador program for XD dissolved. They made it more of like a creative ambassador program. So anybody that's doing any type of creative stuff inside of Adobe. And I decided not to keep, doing that work with Adobe, but it did, it had a lot of fruit in the labor of the work that I was doing with Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that kind of opened me up to a lot of other opportunities. I jumped into contract roles with companies like Citrix, which for all of you, it's a cloud-based company that does a lot of B2B SaaS products.
Yeah, yeah.
Eventually
We
jumped
have,
into. Go ahead. Yeah, you guys know Citrix.
yeah, we have it in Brazil as well.
Okay,
Like
I figured they're global. Um, but just in case, I wanted to make sure I threw that out there. And then from there, more agency work, jumped into some of the big four consulting firms, specifically PwC, where I, continue to do more like UX strategy work and design for uh, a lot of different companies. And what's nice about being in those environments, agency and consulting, is that you kind of work with a lot of different industries. So you kind of get some domain knowledge on how, different systems work and just organizations in general. And then eventually jumped into the ed tech world. I was recruited there, worked for a company called Renaissance Learning. I was working specifically within two products called Nearpod and Vocabulary. And these are just tools for educators to make learning more fun for students. And spent some time there. I led a team for about a year as a UX manager, but before that, I was a senior designer. And even as a UX manager, I was very much like an IC, managing a
Mhm.
team and also building. So did a lot of design systems work there. It's just a lot of revamping of just the overall core experiences of the product. I built my first
Mhm.
AI tool alongside another designer where we created a generative tool for lesson creation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Cool.
and then jumped into now sports tech, and that's where I'm at currently with a company called Play.
Mm-hmm.
We're mostly national within the United States. We did expand recently into Canada, and we're definitely looking to expand further into places in Europe and South America. So hopefully all that um, comes through at some point. But it's been fun. It's been really interesting just to learn the industry of sports tech in general, because right now we're shifting into like this marketplace model. So there's
Mm-hmm.
some a lot of opportunities and uniquenesses there um, that differentiates us from other products within the space, at least within the country. And yeah, I mean that's a bit about me. I mean, see,
Yeah.
I know you see pictures here. Love to travel. I love my family. I've been practicing on the guitar quite a bit lately, taking lessons once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean that's a bit about me.
By the way, your son's pretty big right now, right? It's crazy, man.
Yeah, yeah, he's like in the I want to say like 85th percentile in terms of height. He's a flacco. He's a little skinny.
Okay.
Yeah, he's getting tall. He's getting bigger. He's two and a half
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's one thing that is interesting. Before we start jumping on all the topics that we want to talk, I need to set the timer here. I don't know if you noticed, but the other lives I was setting 45 minutes timer because it's the same time for soccer, right? Because worldwide, everybody says 90 minutes, but in Brazil we say 45, 45, right? Like for us, like two different things because we don't count the 90 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Which makes sense because every time you have the extra time that go over the 45, so whenever it's like a 90 minutes, it's very weird because you have to count that the first part of the game was 45, right? Like to start to keep counting, but actually it wasn't. So I will set 45 minutes so we keep on track on the time. But like a soccer game, sometimes we add like an extra time by the end.
that's right.
Depending, yeah, depending how it goes, right? So, all right. So it's counting now. I think we could even bring that topic about the super IC. I think some people
Yeah,
they were following that thing on LinkedIn, especially because Garen was posting a lot about this topic. But I
yeah,
believe, at least from the conversation that I had in Brazil, I don't see a lot of people talking about that. Or I think maybe people don't understand the concept about the super IC that I feel with all these AI tools, whatever is happening right now, I think it's gonna be really important, right? Because it's I think people talk a lot about the craft of design of the site, but I think it's a mix, right? Because it's the craft, but also you have to scale that. But I think, can you explain to us a little bit about that and how you are doing that right now at Play?
yeah. I mean, obviously Garen would be the one to truly give that definition, and there honestly is like a whole pitchfork mob against this term and what it really stands for. There's an old phrase that people tend to lean into, and it's called it goes like this. It's jack of all trades, master of none, right? And when you hear that term, it basically says that, or what it infers is that, it's probably better to be a master of one, right? Being good at one thing and taking that all away, which kind of eliminates this term of being a super IC, which is a little bit more encompassing of, a lot of skills all in one person, right? But the actual quote says, jack of all trades, master of none is still better than a master of one, right? So having domain knowledge in multiple aspects of what it means to be a product designer or just product in general kind of gives you a lot of strengths in certain areas. You may be the strongest within the realm of the craft, but you still may have a high aptitude in things like business acumen, strategy, and all of those other things. So having that kind of web of knowledge in the work that you do allows you to kind of spread yourself out as like this multi-factor designer or product designer or whatever you want to call yourself, to be able to kind of touch and be very good at different aspects of what encompasses under this term of like product design and just product strategy and all that. So a good example, like a super IC, is somebody who, is probably good at coding, can also design, has some very strong product management skills, has high business acumen so that they're always really thinking about the business or can even run their own business, right? So there's a lot of things that kind of encompass this idea of a super IC. You see a lot of hybrid models now or hybrid roles that you tend to see product designers that are a bit of a hybrid of product design and product management. And a lot of companies are hiring for that so that they can eliminate a role and not have so much overhead where one person kind of take on the task of two, right? You have somebody that is, a supernova at the craft and just knows the craft so in depth and can build things from beginning to end. So it's a web of things that fit under this idea of a super IC. But if your strength lies in more than one place, I would say that kind of classifies you as a super IC and somebody who isn't just in a management role, but is in the weeds of the craft. I think that's the important part of what it means to be a super IC, right? Because even in Garen Ingstrom's profile under his role at Meta, he says pushing pixels, or sorry, managing pixels, not people, right? And that's the idea, is like we're doers more than anything, even though we have like the knowledge base and the high aptitude for even the business side and the management side.
I see. Yeah, I think this is potentially could be like a shift, but I see, at least like on my view, right? Like I think there's like a couple of people that are really good on the craft side, right? Like a very talented people, right? Like I think, and sometimes you may need those people. You still need those people, right? Because maybe they're not good on other aspect of the business side, right? But I think the PM or maybe the product designer, this could be something that the role will change a little bit more, right? Like I think because you could merge a little bit more those things, and in some way, understanding the business goals is part of that, right? Like as a designer, you may need to understand why you're doing those things, right? Because otherwise, there's no sense of like building this feature or the product or understanding KPIs, whatever it is, right? But I think, of course, I think it's like the gaming industry, right? When I was working on gaming, was like that. We were like I was in a team that it was so funny because everybody that worked on the product design team, the name started with J, right? It was it was me, Jordan, everybody was James, everybody was J, and we were like, okay, so uh, the product design team was very focused on the business side of that, right? But also on the design system, the design ops, I will say. But in the other hand, we have the what we call the artists, right? Because on gaming is the craft of that and the sound design, all those stuff is very very specific, right? We have 3D, we have like a lot of things that is not someone that is very good on that is gonna be good also on product design or or as a PM, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like a different skills, right? But I think that's the thing that companies are still trying to understand that better, right? And of course, like Garen, right? He manages like pixels, but I think depending on the role that you are right now or for the future role, that's the thing because you have so many AI tools, automations, things like this that probably, of course, this will enhance the power of designers to deliver things, right? So
Yeah.
one thing that I noticed, with all the MCP stuff, if you start understanding the basics of that, you pretty much can generate the right code or the right a snippet of coding for developers on the correct language, right? So that's the thing about maybe this could change more and more. So
It's a,
to
it's.
yeah,
I was gonna
go
say
ahead.
like, AI is an accelerator for that, right? It's like
Yeah.
you have a PM who's been a PM for years and can now really explore the avenues of design, right? Same
Hmm.
thing with engineers. Engineers were just all in coding. They understand the logic. They understand, all of those gaps that designers tend to miss when we're designing things that engineers see. They, if they put the hat of a designer on, they have all these tools to their advantage to just prompt things into existence, right? And then it's also the language of design as well, right? And that's where the
Hmm.
prompting becomes really effective because it now design becomes tasteful, and you have to
Hmm.
have good taste. So if you can communicate that taste and use the right terminology when you're asking the AI to build something or to do something unique or specific, whether it's with animation, motion, micro interactions, you should know that language. And granted, the language processing does a really good job to just pick up what you're saying, even though you may be a little vague in your prompt. But the more specific you are on the terminology that you use, that becomes a superpower when it
Hmm.
comes to creating things with AI tools.
Yeah, makes sense. So just to come back a little bit to talk about play, right? Like I think a lot of Brazilians, they don't know what is play. If you could explain or describe that in one line for us, I think people will love, because in Brazil, football or soccer for America is like a religion. It's not a sport here. Okay, so can you explain to us, please?
Yeah. So play. It all started with an idea. We had these two founders, one founder specifically, and his brother, that love playing pickup soccer games. They actually own their own soccer facility down in Brickell, called Pegaso, and they had this idea, right? How can we make finding soccer or pickup soccer games more accessible and easy to find?
Hmm.
And that's where it came from. So they initially started with the agent model. Well, to
Hmm.
draw it back, the one liner is Play is an app where you can find pickup soccer games in your neighborhood, right? Anywhere nearby. So if you're looking for a 5-on-5, 6-on-6 on a small field, futsal, turf, outdoor, indoor, in this one app, you can find all of these games, and the locations of these games, the times, the skill levels, all that good stuff.
Hmm.
But Play first started off as like this agent model where they essentially created partnerships with facilities to be able to host these games on the platform.
Hmm.
But now we're scaling into more of a marketplace model where we're allowing, and this came through research where we discovered there are a lot of community groups on WhatsApp and other platforms that were organizing their own games with a large community. So you can imagine one person or two or three people as organizers of soccer
Hmm.
games with an entire community of 200 people within a WhatsApp chat, continuously organizing games consistently throughout the week. And we learned that they were doing this and they were actually leveraging Play, the app, as a way to recruit more people to fill their games.
Hmm.
So with that little bit of research, we learned that there's a market for a marketplace where we can allow
Hmm.
these organizers to create, manage, and host their games on our platform so that not every game was coming from Play, right? We
Okay.
basically provided them the platform.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. But let me try to bring one thing, because I met already like three companies down here in Brazil that is very interesting, because their business model is, and that's so interesting because WhatsApp, you can send video, you can send audio, you can do a lot of stuff. So, and you can make the groups, right? The communities nowadays, like WhatsApp is super advanced, so you can build communities. Inside the communities you have different groups, whatever, right? And so these three different companies, actually I'm gonna do a video about them soon. They pretty much imagine like you have the web, right? You have the web, you have the website, you have the apps and the app stores, and you have like the apps. The apps is the WhatsApp. So the business runs on top of WhatsApp, right? So they don't care about the other or about building their own app, whatever it is, because everything runs on WhatsApp, right? And because now you can use the WhatsApp API, connect that to LLMs, whatever it is. It's so interesting because they stop spending money on creating so many interfaces, but I think it's more about conversational design, right? Like it's about like how you communicate with people, how you manage the group, how you build a community on
Right.
top of WhatsApp only, right? And they shift the business model, the even the teams they hide it. All these three different companies, they are in different sectors, right? One is in beauty, another is like a wellness, like a more health track, whatever. So they were like doing things in different industries, but just leveraging what WhatsApp already created, right? Because that's
Mhm.
another thing. You don't need to bring the community. The community actually they are already living inside WhatsApp, right? So you don't need to do the effort of like trying to like bringing people to my app now, right? Like I think it was very interesting because I think it's a way that probably we can start thinking about that, and some of them they were like leveraging especially the audio feature, right? So because you could send audio all the time to the application and the application was saving the transcript of the audio. I think this is the first step that I see on companies that they are moving out from the screen that we have on a phone, right? Because I think this is a conversation that the industry they are always talking about that. Oh, because nobody's gonna use a phone in 10 years, whatever it is. But I think that those companies are really trying to leverage that right now. They're like, okay, you can just send audio. You don't even need to read things right on the app, right?
Mhm.
So how do you see this behavior, right? I think especially because Latin America, outside US, WhatsApp is really popular, right? It's different
Yeah.
from US. But how do you see this kind of behavior happening?
With play specifically, I would say that's something that we still haven't fully thought through, right? We are very community driven, meaning we have, community groups on WhatsApp, specifically, hosted by play personnel. We have community leaders. We have a brand ambassador program, where people that are players, they're ambassadors, they kind of, host their community stuff on WhatsApp as well. We're also thinking about building internal communication tools, right? There's also to what to your point when it comes to like the no interface, right? The
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT SDK, integration, like that's interesting, right? And could it be that, somebody speaks into ChatGPT and just references play and is looking for a game, and we have this mini app inside of ChatGPT to just help you find the games you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, there's still a lot of things that we haven't thought through that, when we're looking at today's market and the way it's head and where technology is headed, we have a lot of things to consider, but we also have to think about the maturity of our data and how we can leverage that. If you think of, I don't know, community discoverability of games in phases, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still in phase one. Everyone's thinking about phase three, but everyone today is in phase two, and we're only in phase one, right? So there's a lot of progress that we need to make in order to create, some very mature data so that when the time comes to leverage these non-interface interfaces with AI, things are very, well built so that we're working towards that level of intelligence that we currently don't have, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
go from phase one to phase three, it's feasible, but we're risking a lot of issues without the maturity of that data.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. Uh, because it's interesting because I think you guys learn through the time that actually like the community like a driven like a I don't know strategy or focus like a is really important for like the soccer community, right? Like I
Oh,
think because I think a lot of companies they are like trying to build their own communities, or like at least I think now is a kind of like a how you attract those communities, right? Because actually they already exist, right? So you have to attract them, right? Uh, and uh, and I think this is the challenging part, right? Like because it's more than tech, right? It's like a it's relationship with people, right? And I think this is especially community. If we think about like a Figma, right? Like you cannot buy community, right? You have to really build that, right, through the time,
Oh yeah, yeah.
doing events, doing like whatever it is, like to make sure that you are fostering those like communities around, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely a very much like a marketing strategy, right? Like I know
Mhm.
on our end we leverage brand partnerships quite a bit to host free games, right? Which builds, a heavy amount of community because, we have Adidas, for example. That's one of our partnerships where they buy out a series of games for, let's say, a weekend, and a bunch of people who are both play users and non-play users are coming to this meetup to play pickup games where they can get free merch from Adidas, but it's all hosted by Play and Adidas, right? So there's some
Mhm.
brand name dropping there, but also, you know, with those brand names, we're driving that community because there's a level of validation there that, we're the real deal, right? We have partnerships with Michelob Ultra and, a lot of other big name brands that are, hosting these freemium games because everything about play is really the in-person experience, right?
Mhm.
Everything digital, we can do a lot there to increase engagement and to increase community and communication through digital product, but the end goal is really to get them on the pitch, right? The
Mhm.
end goal is to get, a very strong event-driven environment where people are not just, playing pickup game in the evening after work, but also, coming into these community events on the weekend where they can really celebrate the sport
Mhm.
amongst the people that love, the sport of soccer or football, the way everyone else does, right? And it's a huge
Mhm.
community. And you're right. There's so much people, even in the United States, that love this sport that we have yet to reach. And that's kind of our goal is to continue to leverage these brand partnerships to continue to show up and have a footprint in all these different regions across the United States and hopefully one day across the globe to really drive more of that community so that not only are we getting more users on the platform finding games and playing pickup games, but we're also giving back to them with these free brand partnered games where they can get free merch and free jerseys and cool cleats and all that stuff.
Mhm. And by the way, it's very interesting because you are based in Miami, that now is like a big hub for soccer, especially for like a Latin community, right? Like because everybody loves soccer already, and I think a lot of players like Messi, they move it to like to play in MLS, and also like Atlanta is pretty big also in soccer, right? I think like the very interesting thing that I always explain to people in Brazil when I move it to Atlanta, like whenever like you have like a Atlanta United game look like Brazil. It's so crazy because everybody's wearing their jersey. Everybody's like like with flags, going to the bars, whatever. It's like it feels very Brazil, which is weird for like a Brazilian people to see that because like for Brazilians, like I think Americans they don't like soccer that much, but when you go there, like and you see, it's very interesting that little by little this behavior is changing, right? Like I think people are like getting very into the game, and I think this is, like my bet is like I think in 10 to 12 years, US is gonna win a World Cup. This is my bet, my personal bet actually, because I think that there's so much investment on the sport right now in the US that actually is really hard to see in other countries, right? Like that little by little they are like building the league, they are building, bringing all the superstars from Europe, even if they are like retiring, but at least they are retiring in the US, right?
Yeah.
And it's still giving a really good show, right? If you see the games, it's like very interesting, right? Like to see that, and I think what is like how do you see that? Like a World Cup is coming next year to the North America pretty much, and I think this is forcing to change the scene, right, of the football in US, right, more and more. How like a play is preparing for that, and how you see that the people are changing the behavior outside Florida, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you know um, we're definitely leveraging the news, right? Like the fact that FIFA's and the World Cup is coming to United States, and we're basically in all of the hubs of where they're going to be. We're also bringing a lot of that partnership into the mix, right? And I think if we don't already do have, I know we're seeking it, but don't be surprised if you see a play banner somewhere inside of a World Cup event, right? Because a lot of the events that are coming based on the World Cup, we're definitely looking to have strong involvement in, and we're using that to our advantage, right? And I think it's also an accelerator for us because the World Cup is coming. It's making a lot of noise. People are just well immersed in the idea that there's a lot of this sport coming to their neighborhood, and there's going to be a lot going on in 2026, right? With the sport being in all the different cities and states across the country, that it's potentially a driver for us to adopt more users, right? And people who are just now more motivated to play the sport because it's here, because it's coming, right?
Mhm.
We're definitely leveraging that to our advantage. But you have those kind of, let's say, early adopters of soccer enthusiasts and players that have always loved the sport
Mhm.
and play it eagerly every single week or every single day. And then you have those late adopters that because all of this is coming to the United States and it's really bringing that awareness to this beautiful sport that is so global and so widely loved by more people than any other sport, that you start to find people who aren't, avid
Mhm.
soccer players trying to join and just learn the sport. And that's why we offer like friendly games, right? Where even if you're just new to it, just come and try it out,
Mhm.
right? Get a feel for it. Stand on the pitch, kick a ball a couple of times. Some of our events are less competitive because of that, right?
Mhm.
And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing more adoption of the sport, at least to try it out, right? Because it's becoming such a loud noise in our country, that people are curious, right? And you have a lot of fit, athletic people who are not into playing certain sports. Maybe soccer is
Mhm.
one of them, where they're just willing to try it out because it's becoming almost a fashion statement, right? To
Yeah.
wear the jersey. If you're from Miami, you're wearing a Miami Inter jersey. You've never been a soccer fan your entire life, but now you're wearing the Miami Inter jersey or Inter Miami
Mhm.
jersey.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what we're seeing. We're seeing like uh, a wider adoption of people kind of being more entertained by the sport or wanting to try and play the sport in some of these smaller pickup games.
Mhm. And it's so funny because I have like a friend. He's American. He lives in California, and when we had the World Cup in Brazil, he came to Brazil. It was so funny because he's very into soccer for a long, long time. And if you think about it, it's like more than 10 years. I think it was the World Cup in Brazil, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's so weird to think on that time, like he was like, no, I love soccer. He came here like just to watch the games, all this stuff. And but now it's like getting more popular in the US. But in Brazil, it's the opposite. I don't know if you know, but NFL is very popular now in Brazil. And even they did like the preseason games in Brazil already. Like I think it's the second year they are doing here. It's so interesting because it's like a cultural shift that is
Mm.
happening because mostly of course Brazil is really strong in soccer. The fan base is pretty big, but in some way they are very into the Americans football, right? Like now it's weird to see people wearing like the American football like jerseys on the street, right? Because it's like the opposite. It's so weird for me.
Yeah, and the NFL is really pushing for that. I mean, that's why you see them play in Europe.
Yeah.
They really want to become this global sport, and it's been tough. And some will argue that you know, um, Bad Bunny kind of, being the performer for the halftime show is a marketing ploy for that very reason to kind of target, that audience that they're looking for, right? Outside
Hmm.
of the United States, like, a larger demographic of people kind of, to get more into the sport so that they can grow, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, how many, like, name me three widely global sports other than soccer.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard, right? Like soccer is
Yeah.
everywhere in every hemisphere of the earth,
Only
right?
only if you like play cricket in India, whatever, right? Like because it's huge over there, right?
Yeah,
Like but like you don't have like a global audience for that, right? Like you have players
right.
and people that follow, but like it's very specific to a country. But if you think about like if you try to name any sport that is like Olympics, that they have like a world like a event, right? Like a global event every 4 years, you don't have any other sport, not even basketball, right? Like if you think about, oh, basketball could be something that everybody's playing in some way, but not quite, right? Like soccer, right? It's crazy to think about.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think this so by the way, like I brought here like the team that I like in Brazil, that is Corinthians. Some people may not agree with that, but also uh, I know that Ronaldo, the phenomenon, he agrees with that because he retired on the Corinthians team, and I was there on the last game, by the way, right? I went to the game with a couple of friends, and was like a historical moment, right? He retired, everybody was happy to see him. And the other player that I really like, of course, is the other Ronaldo, right? The Ronaldinho. So I think to me, those are like the most like important players uh, of like a soccer. I don't know, like what team do you like, or like players do you follow or like?
I mean, I'm guilty of not being the biggest soccer sports fan, right? I play FIFA and I'll pick any team, but if there's one team I will gravitate towards, it's Spain, right?
Spain.
Uh,
Okay,
and
that's cool.
then the one player I do remember the most is Ronaldinho, just because he was just so creative, I guess, in the way he moved the ball, right?
Hmm.
And then today's players, obviously I'm gonna have to go with Messi. Um,
Okay.
Messi's the goat. Um,
Yeah, but the Messi learned with Ronaldinho everything, right? There's
well,
like
that
a
makes
videos
sense.
because he was like Ronaldinho was already playing at Barcelona, and Messi was like the new guy, pretty much like a young kid, and uh, and there's like a lot of videos that like Ronaldinho is teaching or coaching him. Hey, you have
Yeah,
to do this. You have to be on that side of the field, whatever it is, right? And people always say that, right? Like he was like the like the guy that learned all the tricks with Ronaldinho on that time, right? So, but it's like of course those people are legends, right? Of course, of the game.
for sure. I just remember
Yeah,
Ronaldinho being like just one of the more creative ones, right? Like he
yeah,
was very creative on the pitch, the way he just moved the ball, and he was very expressive. I don't know, he was just really fun to watch.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think of course it's hard to compare. It's the same thing if we talk about basketball and we take like a MJ and LeBron James, right? Like they are like different generations, so it's really hard to compare like the style, the way that like the speed of the game, all this stuff. It was totally different, right? And I think
Yeah,
the
they look
soccer,
at the stats, right? When it comes to
yeah,
like when they compare with, they're always looking at the stats, but like when you look at the game play, the only person that you can really compare to MJ was Kobe Bryant.
yeah, exactly, right? Because I think that it's a lot of factors together, right? Like, it's really hard to name one thing, right? It's like the leadership, the focus, a lot of things that it's really hard to take on the stats only, right? And compare, right? And also like that's the thing, like there's like a small tweaks also on the game, right? Like if you think about the pick and roll technique, all the stuff that evolved through the years, right? Like I think it's not the same from the MJ time, right? So
Yep.
so here, Jonathan, I just took here some competitors, so you can see a little bit of like the Brazilian landscape. How many people are trying to do what Play is doing in America, right? But I think, of course, like it's look like it's a really hard like uh, market, right? Because I think there's so many people trying to solve the problem, and I try
Yeah.
to even navigate a little bit on those platforms just to understand a little bit more. But in some way, each one of them, they have different approach to solve the problem, right? I think, and some of them, they are very focused on the places that they have the fields, right? Like the owner of those fields. Some people are focused on the players or the community side. But I think it's very interesting to me when you see a lot of people, you know, trying to solve the problem. Just a few people will survive, right? I think Warren Buffett was a very like a smart person to say something like that. Like if you think aviation, right? Like there was a lot of companies in the beginning trying to make airplanes, right? Like commercial airplanes, whatever it is. But after like and I read this article a long time. He said like he didn't invested in any of those companies because when it's too crowded, is because nobody could really solve the problem yet, right? Like nobody could establish as a like the top three main players of this industry. So I think it's happening right now for the soccer, right? Like I think everybody's trying to solve the problem, but I think nobody could really, you know, like a leverage or build a business on top of that, right? I think that's the challenge, right? Like to be solved, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In the United States, we're definitely like number one. We're the top. In the United States, you have Good Rec. They're multi-sport, so they're kind of like spread thin. We're very much focused on soccer, and then some of the other soccer-specific platforms they're a lot smaller. Um, but I would say I did look into Apito, and one thing I liked about Apito was their gamification. They have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of features for engagement, and I also like that they use the honor method, meaning like after every game a user adds their stats, because that's
Mm-hmm.
another hard thing, right? It's like when you're playing pickup soccer and you want to provide your users like all the stats from all their games, like how do you track all of that, right? It may take a level of technology where every field has some sort of camera tracker and you have somebody kind of keeping track of all the scores like they do in real games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you rely on the honor method, which, if it's community driven, people can call your bullshit, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you played a game, you scored 3 goals, that's a lie, right? So, just being honest is
Uh-huh.
kind of a good driver of community. And they allow that. And I think that's pretty interesting. They also have like player cards and all this kind of fun stuff. So they really focused on engagement, which I really like. They have
Mm-hmm.
leaderboards. Um, and I've learned from them a lot. They even have like integrations with fitness watches. So if you're wearing it and you're running around, you get to track your calories, time spent, steps, walked, all that good stuff. So again, they highly focused on engagement, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps users coming back to see where they stand on the leaderboard, looking at other player stats. So it definitely seems like a fun app. The rest of them, I
Mm-hmm.
have no clue.
Yeah.
But I do like what Abito is doing. I think you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I think also that's the thing about community, right? Like I think to not be a BS, you really need like the community leaders that is like a managing and making sure that nobody's like a posting like a fake content, right? Because that's the thing
Right.
about, right? It's almost the same thing about having a WhatsApp community, right? If everybody's sort of like posting like a spam or like a random content that is not related to the community, people just leave, right? Like or just block that, right?
Well, that's why the marketplace initiative for Play is so important because, we no longer have to be the presence on the field as much to make sure things are running smoothly. We put that reliance on the organizers. So
Mm-hmm.
when they post a game and people are joining their games, there's going to be ratings, there's going to be reviews, and that's going to be, brought to the forefront of the experience so users know, whether or not the quality of these organizers' games are good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be managed by them. It needs to be, handled by them. They have to be on the pitch. They need to make sure things are running smoothly, that there are no fights, right? A lot of red
Mm-hmm.
flags happen that can be, issues for the Play brand in general that we need to, oversee and just make sure that we have some quality assurance around, the games that we're letting people post on our platform. But, all that comes with time, all that comes with exercising and kind of just seeing what these organizers do with the games that they post and the quality of their experiences that they're receiving through ratings from other players that have joined their games.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's cool. So also like just to make sure that we can stick to our like timeline, I want to ask you some tips from you, like if you have like a book that was like a very uh,
Oh,
important to your career or for your life. I think will be nice to have some recommendations.
yeah, there's two. So maybe I could type one in here. This one
Yeah,
is, oh, I'll do it here.
yeah.
Designing the Mind. This one is by, oh, let me see. Where's this guy's name? It's funny, the author's name is not even in the front page. But look it up. It's called Designing the Minds. So basically, a systems architecture
Mm-hmm.
or systems architect wrote this book and used systems architect thinking on ways of kind of rewiring your brain, right?
Okay.
So he kind of pictured it as imagine stepping outside of yourself and being a systems architect for all your neural pathways in your mind, right? So the benefits of this are just like these principles of psychitecture is what they call it, where, if you're looking to achieve a goal or make life changes or create new patterns in your habits, right? There's a way to think about that and
Mm-hmm.
how you can kind of rewire your brain to transition to a better version of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the other book is called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. So if you don't know who Rick Rubin is, he was, I guess, the founder of Def Jam Records, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
He's this crazy white-haired dude, and he's got this very spiritual essence on how he thinks about creativity. And one of my favorite quotes what that he said, and I'm gonna jack this up, but it goes something like this. He basically says that when an idea comes to mind, it's your responsibility to do something about it. Because if you don't be surprised if someone else captures that idea and creates it. Because
Mm-hmm.
it was that time. It's the time for that idea to come to life, right?
Okay. Okay.
Essentially, we don't own our ideas. The idea,
Mm-hmm.
it's just time for the idea to come into existence. So when you do have an idea, be prepared to act on it. Otherwise, someone else will.
Okay.
Right. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a very mind-bending kind of perspective on, where we get ideas from. And, sometimes we think of things and we do nothing about them, but then next thing you know, you see it somewhere, right? And you're like, oh my God, that
Mm-hmm.
was an idea I had. Right.
Yeah.
Um,
But like what happened? Like I was reading a book that I have this quote with me right now inside me, because whenever you have an idea or if you have a goal, the problem is that like you never rise on the level of your goals, of your idea, of your vision. you always falls on the level of the systems that you create, right? So for example, if you have an idea and you wanna like make this idea happen, you have to build systems that is gonna make you uh, reach that level, right? Because if you don't have any systems, right, is like if you think of a very simple system, if you compare, it's like you want to be in shape, but if you don't have a system to, I'm gonna wake up, eat like a
Yeah.
healthy, or like going to the gym every day or 3 times a week, whatever. If you don't have a system, you're gonna fall on the level of your system that is zero, right? Okay, so you're gonna be fat, pretty much, right?
Yep.
Whatever it is, or unhealthy.
Yep.
But if you build systems, is how you can really level up and reach that goal, or a kind of like a making that idea happen.
That's the work, right? That's the
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
When you have an idea, it means get to work, right?
yeah, yeah.
And whatever that work means, building systems, building processes, building ways to get it done, right? It's not just,
Hmm.
hey, I'm gonna create this idea. No, like there's a process to it and you need to figure that out.
Yeah, that's right. So another thing is like a designer that inspires you.
Designers that inspire me,
Yeah,
that's
there's
crazy because
there's so
um
many.
yeah, like I would say because I've been more like at the thought leader level now. So when I look at designers, I'm looking more for their way of thinking and less of like how cool they do their craft, right?
Hmm.
Um, so when I think of thought leaders, right? Well, I'll throw one in from the craft, right? I mean, and I'm just gonna name drop the people we've met personally, which is pretty cool. Design systems
Hmm.
guy, right? Who doesn't love a good
Yeah.
design systems guy? He's got a strong method for it.
Hmm.
Love what he does. He even has like basically a school that you can pay for where he teaches you like how to build awesome design systems in Figma.
Hmm.
So called design systems. Um, I love Vitali Friedman.
Hmm.
Um, Again, when it comes to just like very deep thinking, this guy also like posts so much good content. Like he's such an advocate for the community. Really
Hmm.
keeps you up to par. I was actually just on a Maven live with him and like a whole community, and he was talking specifically all about AI, and he had some good points to make around like agents. Oh, 5 minutes?
Okay. Yeah, we can add like a extra 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Okay,
7 minutes.
can go.
So, thought leader and design advocate. So his content is good. I believe he's uh, from Smashing Magazine,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Um, but
yeah.
I
And
love
his
all.
Smash magazine was like making a lot of really good content for years, actually, if you think about
Yeah.
it, right? Like for the industry. Yeah, that's cool. Uh, and I don't know if you have someone else, but also an advice for like designers, if you have one, like
Yeah, advice for designers.
like in Brazil, we say that if advice is good, it's not gonna be free, right? Like people will pay for that. So if you're giving for free, it's because it's not that good.
I'll say it like this, okay? My advice to you is understand what your deepest strengths are when it comes to design, right? And maybe stop focusing on that for a little bit and learn to build strengths in other areas that are going to benefit you in the growth of your career, right? So if that means learning business, right? If that means learning, coding and engineering, just try to expand your horizon a little bit. Because if you already felt like you've mastered your craft in one area, or at least gotten to a point where you can basically do it blindfolded, it's time to, you know, because essentially what happens is you grow and then you reach a plateau, right?
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
one mountain that you've climbed. Well, now it's time to climb another, and then another. Every time you feel like you've grasped something really, really well, find the next thing, right? Try to be a strong generalist so that you have domain knowledge in, multiple hemispheres of the industry, right? Whether it's within the skill and the craft, whether it's in the strategy and business, whether it's in understanding data, right? So yeah, find the next thing, and then obviously, think about AI quite a bit in that journey, and just be mindful and careful, right, of how we use it. One thing I always tell people is, once upon a time we knew how to find our way to, our friend's house or a store or a mall just by knowing the streets and avenues of our cities. And now we solely rely on GPS to essentially tell us where to go every time. Today, without GPS, people will not know where to go or how to get somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So, in that same frame of thinking, when you design with AI, try not to lose the essence of your ability to think critically for yourself, and don't always rely on its responses as the final answer, right? Be a critical thinker, hone in on the strategy, and just use AI very wisely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of people are still relying on AI a lot, or thinking that AI will replace us. But from my explorations on like different things, MCP servers, all this stuff, they, there are a lot of things that AI cannot replace 100% people, but of course they can enhance or speed up our process for sure. But you still need a lot of critical thinking to make decisions on the process, right? So
Yeah. And I would say this too, like Vitaly Friedman brought this up in the last call I was on just before this, was that big organizations aren't just going to adopt a bunch of agents to do all this work and automate. Do you think these organizations want a bunch of these little bots kind of going through all their information and data without them knowing or having oversight on? Right. So there's not going to be an adoption happening that quick. Right now, we're in the phase of exploration, right? That's the current state of where all of this is. There's not a full adoption just yet. So yeah, just be mindful of that, right? There's always going to most likely need to be the human component.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And I think this blends with the skill, right? I think there's a lot of skills that you mentioned, but if you have to pick only one, like what is like the main skill that I think you should focus?
Oh, as there's so much. I'm gonna give you two. One,
Okay.
learn a skill that's unrelated to what you do for work. Like I'm learning to practice guitar. I'm learning guitar. Like that's a skill I really desire. I want to know how to play guitar like Jimi Hendrix and John Mayer, right? Um, so learn the skill so that you can kind of detach a little bit. And then when it comes to skills as a designer, and I'll go in to my craft people, good documentation, good handoff documentation, all that, right? Like try to learn to speak the language of engineers in all the things that you design and hand off to them, and structure it in a way that makes it very, very easy for them, right? So, thinking about edge cases, getting detailed with all the Figma annotations on certain functionality and behaviors and logic, right? Creating your own unique tags for all those annotations. Like I think my tags are interactions, logic, accessibility, and I think like I have like a general one, right? And one way that's always helped me is when I deliver designs, I usually break it down into three sections. It's more than that, but just at a high level: flow, structure, and component. So the flow gives you the entire user flow of like a bunch of screens. The specs or structure is kind of breaking things out and into like basically all the behaviors and specs of certain unique parts of the experience that need to be specifically called out. And then components, right? Another section that if you're creating new components that need to be brought into the design system, or you've changed a certain instance of a component from a design system, you kind of separate that from the rest of the docs so that it's always called out. So that if you do have a design systems lead, that's a place for them to consider whether or not it belongs in the library, if it does, or if it doesn't. There can be some communication there.
Okay, perfect. We are on time pretty much because we already had our extra time. So I wanna really thank you, Jonathan, for the time on this night, like to share a little bit of your experience, everything that you have been doing. It's very inspiring to see all the different fields, industries that you worked on the past few years. We know each other now for, I don't know, maybe 7 years,
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah, so
exactly.
7 to 8 years probably. So it's really cool to see all that, and I think I hope everybody enjoy the session with Jonathan. I will try to bring more people from US, people that I met, and I hope everybody's learning also a little bit of English together, right? And maybe I will bring a little bit of the US audience to the to the channel as well. Thank you very much, Jonathan, and thank you everybody for watching. See you on the next live.
All right, Juno, take care.